Hey, hey, hey. Happy Tuesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, GamingGang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everyone. Tonight is Tuesday, April 14th, 2026. This is live stream 1309. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual around here. We're just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop role-playing game news. And then I'll usually discuss a topic. I will pontificate. And tonight, I am going to give the final definitive answer to an age-old question. Is Dungeon Crawl Classics part of the old school renaissance or revival? We're going to talk about that in a bit. But I've got a jam-packed show for you tonight. There's lots cooking. Even got a little surprise that we're going to take a peek at something. We'll get to that in just a bit. But once again, if you're not overly familiar with this, we're certainly not too overly serious around these here parts. We are not engaged in rocket surgery by any stretch of the imagination. So kick back, have some fun. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit GamingGang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news and reviews and a whole lot more you are never going to see here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And of course, as I mentioned, this is a live stream, so that means there is chat available. Now, you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least an hour before you can take part. But if you check off that box and you want to say howdy, maybe get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my absolute best to respond. See, first out the gate tonight is Semper Buffo. W. Forge is with us, as is Harvey Chuckles, Keithulhu, Cooperative Waffles, Zarquan, Danny Gable, Roy Loveday. I believe it's been quite a while since we had Roy Loveday in chat. Just nickname's not ringing a bell right off the top. And Klantos is with us as well. And I would take a guess we might have the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D lurking in the shadows as a chat moderator here. She of the glittery banhammer. So watch out, behave. Yep. Roy Loveday says, yup. Matthew Blackwell is also with us tonight. So welcome, everybody. Let's dive on into the news because the pre-orders have begun for Dungeons & Dragons Ravenloft, The Horrors Within. Here's the scoop from D&D Beyond. Today, your party's greatest nightmare is the one you create. Bring fear to the table with the Ravenloft, The Horrors Within Ultimate Bundle, the complete horror toolkit with everything you need to create a personalized horror campaign and strike fear into the hearts of your players. This ultimate bundle includes physical and digital versions of Ravenloft, The Horrors Within, containing 16 domains of dread, 17 dark lords, 7 subclasses, 4 species, 4 backgrounds, 11 feats, 68 monsters, and 47 maps, including 28 digital quick play maps for virtual tabletops. The physical Ravenloft, The Horrors Within Tarokka deck is also included for weaving terrifying twists into your campaign with 54 fully illustrated cards. There's the Dungeon Master screen for keeping your plans enshrouded in mystery. Physical and digital versions of the Ravenloft The Horrors Within map pack for plotting out eerie encounters for your party, as well as the Mists of Ravenloft digital dice set, Ravenloft play-along pack, and D&D Encounters Shadows of Scythicus mini adventure. If you were to buy these all separately over on D&D Beyond, you'd be spending $34.95 more. Now, this ultimate bundle does carry an MSRP of $149.99. I would think it'd be $95, seeing you're saving $34.95. In fact, I thought usually the Dungeons and Dragons books did end in $95. I don't know, maybe that's a misprint. If you're just going to pick up the book alone, the physical book, it's going to carry an MSRP of $59.99. And this is scheduled for June. So there you go. And a special bonus, Sirius Dice now has the Dungeons & Dragons Castle Ravenloft treasure packs. These are dice bags, sets of dice, coins. They have different rarities and such. And after the news, we're going to take a peek at 5 of these. We're just going to tear them open, take a peek inside, and see what they've got. So stay tuned for that. On our next news piece, the core rulebook for the Shadow Scar role-playing game has landed. I've got the latest from our Talsorian Games. You've seen Beyond the Mask, and now you must make a choice. Forget what you've seen, or leave what you know behind. Long ago, the magical land of Nakatsukuni was plunged into chaos as Yomi, the afterlife itself, rebelled against the gods using the body of the dead mother goddess Izanami as its host. For years, the gods waged war against Yami, until just 14 years ago, when in a desperate bid to avert the apocalypse, the gods tore a hole in reality, a long shadow scar. Izanami and her monstrous army were banished through this scar, and the apocalypse was averted. But as peace came to Nakatsukuni, chaos reigned beyond the Shadow Scar. In banishing their enemy, the gods had unleashed thousands of monstrous creatures onto the many worlds beyond Nakatsukuni. That's what's throwing me off. That name is like long and not very flowing. To defend the multiverse, the gods created the Shadow Scar Agency, an organization of people from many worlds trained in ninjutsu at ancient shinobi academies. Armed with high-tech tools and magical artifacts, they travel across the multiverse to hunt down their vicious adversaries and stop them before they can wreak havoc. Shadow Scar is a tabletop role-playing game inspired by Japanese mythology, the legends of ninja, anime like Full Metal Alchemist, and stories of secret agents like the Men in Black. The core rulebook contains everything you need to run a one-night session or a multi-year campaign. You're going to find inside rules to create Shadow Scar agents from 4 different worlds: the magical realm of Nakatsukuni, the steam-powered smoggy realm of Steel Court, the 1920s pulp comic realm of Fifth Street, and the high-tech spacefaring realm of Refuge. Techniques and sorcery from 6 shinobi schools, the cunning criminals of the Arashi. Oh, I have got a cunning crime, me lord. The fire-spitting artificers of the Hibana, the tactful assassins of the Kuramaku, the keen hunters of the Wanami, the secret spies of the Tantei, and the warrior nobles of the Futsumashi. You'll find detailed lore chapters about the Shadow Scar Agency in all 4 worlds with information on factions of interest and key locations. A guide to storytelling with tips and tricks to get the most out of your Shadow Scar game. And a rogues gallery of 40 enemies, ranging from common thugs to powerful, brutish Oni. Or, no, I think it's Oni is how it's pronounced now that I think about it. The 293-page hardcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $60. You can grab just the PDF over at Drive-Thru RPG for $30. And I will mention that we do have the starter set at a special 50% off price to celebrate the core book's release. So if you want to dip your toes in, you can check that out. Yes, very nice. So nice to see our Talsorian Games kind of branch out a little bit. I mean, I know their strong focus is on Cyberpunk Red, and I dig that. We got a new game from Corey Pondsmith, so you might want to check it out. Let's see. Age of Adventure is with us, as is Mark Hawkswell. JD Sewell has popped on into chat. Kevin R. Smith is with us, as is Spelling Mistake. So welcome. So Cooperative Waffles is talking about the Trollord Games backer kit for Castle Zagyig. Yep, I shared a news piece about that last week. So there you go. And mentioning Castles and Crusades, Cooperative Waffles should know that the vast majority of the people hanging out in chat right now know all about Castles and Crusades. Right, gang? Could have swore I heard just one loud right coming through the monitor there. Yeah. All right, moving right along. Physical releases for Dune, Adventures in the Imperium from Modiphius Entertainment are the focus of a money-saving offer over at Humble Bundle, and I've got the deets on the deal. Ride the Worm to tabletop victory. If you've ever wanted to see how well you'd survive Frank Herbert's vast Dune universe, maybe bring some of your friends along for the Sandworm ride, well, there's a bundle just for you. And good news for those who'd like to play their tabletop role-playing games on actual tabletops. This bundle actually includes physical copies of everything I'm about to mention. Get things rolling with the Agents of Dune Deluxe starter set from Modiphius's Dune, Adventures in the Imperium, which includes a complete adventure, character folios, card decks, and even a spice harvesting system. Funny enough, it was not referred to as a starter set by Modiphius Entertainment when it came out. It was just Agents of Dune. And then people realized, oh my gosh, this is a starter set. Because it was not advertised as a starter set. It was advertised as the first chapter of an ongoing campaign. Yes. Show your loyalty to the greatest house of the Imperium with the Atreides Collector's Edition of the Dune Core Rulebook. Test your sandwalking skills with an Arrakis-themed dice set. Chart the golden path with the Game Master's Toolkit. All this and more is included when you accept your destiny and grab this bundle for the price of your choice. And then for those who prefer digital copies, there's an all-digital version available as well. All purchases will help support the ACLU. If you want to try riding those sandworms, though, you're on your own. Now you can jump aboard for $13. If you want to go all in for a donation of $70 or more, you will receive the core rulebook, standard limited editions, both of those, Agents of Dune, the Sand and Dust Adventure Supplement, dice, the GM screen, as well as a voucher for 80% off all the other Dune titles at the Modiphius website. These savings will run through May 2nd, and you must redeem this offer. I believe you've got until, if you purchase it, you have until, I think it was June 30th, I saw. So I had mentioned this before. I think the license for Dune is running out for Modiphius Entertainment, because it wasn't that long ago they had a Dune bundle. I want to say it was Bundle of Holding. And now they are over at Humble Bundle. I would not be shocked if we end up seeing, say, come early June, we might see the digital items offered in a big bundle over at Fanatical. So it does look like Modiphius Entertainment is trying to blow out their stock of Dune Adventures in the Imperium, all their various different releases in the line. And I had an opportunity to review a good number of these, and I liked them a bunch. I thought Agents of Dune was excellent. I was like, wow, I wish I could play it. JD Soul says they keep losing licenses, don't they? Well, you got to realize some of these licensees, I guess, with the license holders, they tend to want to move on to a different company because they figured, okay, here's another opportunity. We move on to another company, and now we could beat this dead horse a little bit more. I mean, that's the reality of it. So I don't think it's necessarily Modiphius Entertainment's fault. I don't think this system went over all that great anyway. I think it started out really well. I think the core rule book probably did okay. The Sands and Dust, the Agents of Dune, I think those probably sold fairly well, and then I think it dropped off. I'm just, just giving you my unvarnished opinion, I guess I will say. But I also think that the 2D20 system actually deters people from checking out a lot of the Modiphius Entertainment role-playing games. We talk about this all the time, that there is a misconception that the 2D20 system is really, really crunchy, and it's not. So Savage Splendor's with us, says Dune honestly doesn't seem like it's a fun setting to play a game in. I could see the first couple of books being fairly entertaining because the cool thing about Agents of Dune is it's not House Atreides that's sent to Arrakis. It's your house that you create. So I like that. I thought that was very, very cool. So it does branch off. It's not just regurgitating the novel as an adventure or an adventure campaign. Straight Kismet's with us, says, just like the real books, it started to lose me after a while. I finished the first two, never finished the third. You and me both. Yep, you and me both. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? JD Soul says, didn't they lose the Conan license? Yes. And their Conan stuff was excellent. Oh, man, was it good. Like I said, these estates, they're really, I don't even think most of the time they're estates. I think they're like holding companies. So as an example, the estate of J.R.R. Tolkien doesn't handle the gaming or like video games and stuff like that. So like role-playing games, and I think it's also tabletop games are with a particular company, which I heard is just a disaster to have to work with. They are supposed to be just absolutely awful. So I had heard through the grapevine that when Cubicle 7 Games Entertainment, really at that point, lost the license for Lord of the Rings role-playing games, there were no tears shed. All I'm saying. A little birdie told me that. So let's see who else is hanging out here in chat. Sarah D has joined us. So yes, we've got somebody manning the chat moderation. Semper Buffa says, Dune 2D20 is a great game for the people that love the lore from the books. Yeah, I liked it. I reviewed it. I thought it was very, very well done. Danny Gable says, I want to ride a space worm. Chris Lundgren is popping in with his cockatiel buddy. So welcome. Cooperative Waffle says, no tears shed. Ouch. Hey, I'm just, I think enough time has probably passed. I'm not going to say what was said, and I'm not going to tell you who said it. But I am saying that a little birdie told me that the fine folks, my friends actually, over at Cubicle 7 Games, were not displeased that they weren't going to be working on the Lord of the Rings role-playing games anymore. For a few different reasons, actually. All right, let's move on to our next big news piece. Because breaking this afternoon, Darrington Press announced that the first expansion for Daggerheart is arriving this summer. And I've got the skinny on, Hope and Fear. Published by Darrington Press, the expansion significantly broadens the scope of the game, introducing a wealth of new character options, enemies, and campaign tools. Fans will get an early look at the release during a limited debut at Gen Con, which is July 30th through August 2nd. I will be there. Elliot Miller and I will both be there. So if you're there and you see us, be sure to say hello. Now, copies will appear in select guild stores, local game shops, and Critical Role outlets beginning on August 24th. Now, the full retail release will follow on September 22nd. At its core, Hope and Fear is designed to deepen both storytelling and mechanical variety. The expansion introduces 4 new classes: Witch, Warlock, Brawler, and Assassin, each with 2 subclasses, alongside over 130 new adversaries and dozens of environments. 4 new campaign frames also provide ready-made settings and narrative scaffolding for groups looking to jump straight into fresh adventures. There will be a standard edition and deluxe edition. The standard edition, which will carry an MSRP of $39.99, includes a 198-page rulebook alongside a box of cards and blank adversary sheets for custom creations. Inside, players will find 4 new classes with 8 new subclasses, over 130 adversaries and 28 environments, over 100 new weapons, armor, and items, as well as those 4 aforementioned campaign frames introducing entirely new worlds. The included cards expand gameplay even further, featuring a new Dread Domain deck focused on dark, macabre magic for the Witch and Warlock. Additional cards cover subclasses, ancestries, and communities, while introducing a brand new transformation system, allowing characters to become entities like vampires, werewolves, ghosts, or even demigods. For collectors and dedicated fans, there's the Deluxe Edition, which will carry an MSRP of $119.99, offers a premium experience packed with extras. Housed in a gold foil box with exclusive artwork, it includes a GM screen with integrated fear tracking and quick reference tools, multiple adversary and character sheet pads, plus maps and guides, a full suite of deluxe dice, including an oversized D20 and custom Hope and Fear dice, expanded storage for cards and accessories in a magnetically sealed compartment. With its blend of dark fantasy, flexible storytelling tools, and tactile upgrades, Daggerheart Hope and Fear. What, I can't read today? Hope and Feet. Hey, you gonna pick up Daggerheart Hope and Feet? No, Jeff, I'm not. Daggerheart Hope and Fear looks to be a substantial evolution of the system, offering both players and game masters new ways to shape their stories across strange and dangerous worlds. Well. Tessie Trekkie with us tonight said, I tried Daggerheart in our group. It unfortunately became known as Dragon Shark. Womp, 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 womp. Let's see here. Straight Kismet's with us. DB's popped on in. Savage Splendor is also with us in chat. It's like chat is off and rocking. Yeah, some people don't like it. Some people do. I have heard conflicting opinions. I'll tell you what, from what I have found out, I might be wrong, but this is the impression I've gotten. The less likely you are to play 5e or 5.5 Dungeons and Dragons, the less inclined you are to check out Daggerheart. I'm just saying. I have heard from people who are very big into like the old school Renaissance. They do not like it at all. And then other people who are more in the camp of like 5e, 5.5, they like it a bunch. They like, in fact, I have heard from some saying that they're leaving D&D and going full force into Daggerheart, although the reality is there isn't that much out there for it. Most of the stuff that's out there is third party. And I know the core box was out of print for a long time. I think it's back in print. I could be wrong. So I know that Sammy reviewed it over at the website. If I remember right, I believe she liked it. I believe she liked it quite a bit. Yeah, there you go. Keith Lewis says hoppin' feet. Better yet, it's hoppin' feet. So let's see. Kevin R. Smith says they've read most of the Daggerheart SRD. I can't pull the trigger on it because I'm not sure how well you can make your own setting as a GM with it. Savage Splendor says one release a year, it seems. Weird from a company like them. I don't know, because, you know, if you think about it, Critical Role doesn't release a lot of game stuff. And they're not prolific, I guess I will say. They're prolific at video content and stuff, sure. But as far as like gaming content that's from Critical Role, not a hell of a lot. Agile Monk is with us in chat. Welcome. And I see Ravenclaw is also popped on in. They just bought Space Empires 4X and its expansion. It's a great game. Yes, I have reviewed Space Empires 4X from our friends over at GMT Games. All right, let's move on to our final news piece. The first Shadow Delve adventure for Shadow Dark has arrived from North Conglomerate and Seidmann Games. Here's a lowdown on Dawn of the Goat. In this adventure, the player character is awakened after a heavy night of drinking to the sight of the village outside their inn window being torn apart by 4 massive goat men. They must quickly find a way to survive, as it is only a matter of time before the creatures turn their attention to the inn they have barricaded themselves inside and make it their next target. This is a low to no prep folk horror adventure set in a closed-off environment. It's compatible with Shadow Dark 5e and old school revival games. It's a fast-paced adventure where players must be quick and resourceful. Perfect for one-shots, whether streaming, at home, in-store, or at cons. It includes hand-drawn illustrations and maps created specifically for the adventure, as well as high-resolution player-facing maps included for printout or virtual tabletops. Shadow Delves is a series of Shadow Dark compatible adventures written by the creative Norwegians of Seidmann Games and the Dark North Conglomerate. Forged in frost and written in shadow, these adventures rise from Norway's fjords and mountains, drawing on what they know best. They are perfect for Shadow Dark one-shots or for dropping into campaigns inspired by folk tales, Norse mythology, and the general misanthropy of people who get no sun for half the year. This 16-page PDF is available now over at Drive-Thru RPG for $4.99. And this is our giveaway for tonight. I'm going to give away a PDF copy. Yes, a PDF copy of Dawn of the Goat. In just a few minutes, I should just said Dawn of the Goat. So, we'll do another trivia contest in just a little bit. And then first person to get the correct answer is going to win that PDF. Savage Splendor says, you got me at Goatman. Kevin R. Smith says, I think Darrington Press has like 4 employees. The Daggerheart designers, Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins. And they didn't have the last 2 until fairly recently. So they had 2 before. Yeah, you know, weirdly enough, I think people mix up Darrington Press and Beatles and Grimm for some reason. It's like, I could have swore I saw something. Somebody was asking about like the really expensive limited edition D&D and Pathfinder stuff from Darrington Press. And I'm like, Darrington Press? Like, no, that's Beatles and Grimm. The big, like, $300 box sets. Sometimes it's a little more than that. Ravenclaw says, Norway has some twisted mythologies. Must be the cold. DB says they get them confused with Bartles and James. Well, that's only after you've drank a lot of Bartles and James. When did those go? When did those go the way of the dodo? Mid-90s, maybe? It was funny because they were super popular and then poof. I mean, wine coolers still floated around. I think they still have wine coolers out there. But Chris Leonard says they just found out that Horrified the board game's coming out with a Ravenloft edition. Okay. 1989 is DB's guess, is when Bartles and James went out of, well, I don't know if they went out of business. They just stopped producing the wine coolers. All right. So if you tune in a little late, my first news piece was about the pre-orders have begun for Dungeons & Dragons Ravenloft, The Horror Within, and Sirius Dice has launched their Dungeons & Dragons Castle Ravenloft treasure packs. They're available from SiriusDice.com, and it's Sirius as in the satellite radio Sirius, the star Sirius, not, what was it, an airplane? Sure. Oh, no, it's Shirley. You must be joking. I was going to say, it's not the Sirius as in airplane, but no, it's Shirley. I am serious. And stop calling me Shirley. Dun, dun, dun. Anywho, so let's take a peek inside these, because you may recall we took a look at the Baldur's Gate 3 sets. They had a single 20-sided die, a coin, and a dice bag. These actually have full sets of dice. Yes, they have full sets of dice. So let's swing out over to the other camera, because here we got the first treasure pack we'll take a peek at. It's for ages 14 and up. And as I mentioned, MSRP is $19.99. And the sets that had the 20-sided die, it was oversized. There you go. Surely you can't be serious. All right, so here's our first bag. This has kind of almost like a felt finish to it. The Baldur's Gate had much more rough material. So we got that. What kind of coin do we have here? So here's our D&D coin. So it's Celestial Revelation Heavenly Wings. And then our set of dice. Let's see. I was going to say, I should have something. Let's get a white background to take a peek at these dice. That was cool. So we got the full set, and yes, sadly, only one 6-sided die. Pretty solid. Pretty solid plastic, I must say. So that is our first treasure pack. Cooperative Waffle says, those aren't candy. I honestly like the feel of this bag. That's kind of cool. And then, yes, we got the pull strings. Ta-da! You might be wondering what I did with those other dice packages, the Baldur's Gate 3 sets. I gave them to the gang. I kept one and gave the others to the rest of the gang. Elliot hasn't gotten his yet because he hasn't made it over for a role-playing game. Ooh, I wonder if that's going to be the coin we've got. Because I think that's kind of a special coin. Probably not. It's probably just it's just the bag. Right, so here we have large form Goliath. It's like most of our coins are going to have the same backing on one side. And then our set of dice here. See, this also has kind of a nice velvety feel to it. Ooh, okay. So we've got gray with gold ink, it looked like. Yes. It's pretty cool. Missed the 4-sider. There we go. I got to say, the numbers don't pop on that. Usually like to see the inks kind of pop off the dice, make it a little easier to read. It's not terrible. Not like some I've seen, which is like really weird. I've seen like dark green dice with dark burgundy ink, and it's like, what? It's like lots of luck. Lots of luck figuring that out. So as I mentioned, I have 5 of these. Okay, so now we got bats. Okay, so now we got a round coin. And this is Celestial Revelation Necrotic Shroud. That's cool. And what do we got for our set here? So black with silver. And then we do have special faces. Whoops. So on the 20, we've got the ampersand there. That is a bird on the 6-sider. I think that's those are the only ones. Oh no, there's a 12. But that has the 8. So yeah. So these are the 3 dice that have the highest face, has a little bit of a like little design to it. And the next one we'll take a peek because I'm pretty sure that each of the different dice colors will have a little different icon. So Savage Splinter says, yeah, those read way better than the last set. Yes. Cooperative Waffle says, yeah, their eyes need easy reading die numbers. Me too. Because the last thing I want to do while I'm running a game is have to struggle to figure out what the hell the die rolls are. All right, what do we got here? Okay, so here's some sort of a chalice. And then, oh, looky at that. I would take a guess that is probably one of the rares. Because, yes, the coins, the bags, and the dice all have different rarities. So I would think a Stroud coin, and it's got a different back to it as well. I would think that's probably got, and maybe it's not the rarest. So Savage Splendor says, dang, those are $30 a pack. That's what they're listed at on Amazon. Go to SiriusDice.com. Because SiriusDice.com indicates they're $19.99. So otherwise, something's wrong somewhere. All right, here's a set of dice where I do not like the inks. This is an example of, like I just was talking about, where you had like a dark green with a dark burgundy. Well, this is orange with a dark red. Lots of luck. Keith Lewis says it's Strahd depicted by Clyde Caldwell. Well, very well could be. TV says, damn, forget those. Can't read them. These are probably the most rare of the whole bunch. They're lava dice. I'll probably give these to my brother. He's not getting the coin, though. There's actually, at the Sirius website, there's like some images that show the different like rarities. So I thought that was kind of cool. I'll have to take a peek to see if this coin is any sort of rarity to it. All right. We have one treasure pack left. Ooh. Okay, so this bag now has the same sort of kind of rough feel as the other bags from the Baldur's Gate 3 set. It's kind of cool, though. It's got the D&D ampersand, and it's, spider web. See, now these aren't too bad. Those dice look a little better. Personally, I would have liked that to be just like a bright yellow. I think that would have been better. All right, and then we have Rudolf van Richten, Monster Hunter. Little Britain's with us. The loot bags are cool and all. Did I miss the DCC discussion? Yep, we're all done. We wrapped it up, finished it all up. No, we haven't gotten to it yet. So don't worry. We haven't even got to the brief intermission yet. But because we had the announcement that the pre-orders have begun for Dungeons & Dragons Ravenloft, The Horror Within, and the fine folks over at Sirius Dice had just sent me these Castle Ravenloft treasure packs, I thought now would be a good time for me to share those with you. Take a peek. Once again, as we've just found out, do not buy these off of Amazon. They're $10 more. These are $19.99 over at the Sirius site. That includes a full set of dice. Sadly, only one 6-sided die. And a cool die and the bag. Nice. I got to say, in my opinion, I think this is a better deal than the Baldur's Gate 3. I like the Baldur's Gate 3. They had big, oversized 20-sided dice in them, but that's all it was. You got the coin, the bag, and this big 20-sided die. Here you're getting a full set of the polyhedral dice. So there you go. All right. So big thank you to my friends over at Sirius Dice for providing me with 5 of the Castle Ravenloft treasure packs. Very cool. Sweet. So before we continue, I should mention when I was sharing the news, I had brought up Drive-Thru RPG a few times. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you're going to go stop by, say, oh, I don't know, Drive-Thru RPG, stop by thegaminggang.com first, click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a 5% commission. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up. Help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you enjoy the Gaming Gang, there are a couple other ways for you to support the outlet. First, you can make a one-time donation by way of PayPal. You can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Oh, that's wet. And a big thank you to Lisa Watkins for her recent donation by way of PayPal. And then, of course, you can also become a member of our Patreon. So during the live shows, I always like to give a big thank you to our Patreon members. So tip of the cap to our newcomers, Fairdrift and Ben Olthwaite, plus Caval, Kevin R. Smith, Talzak, Sean O'Donnell, Herman Lutman, Gustavo Covalho, Kevin King, Game Cat, RPG Munch, Tier 2 DM, Pete Straklich, Dan Webb, Tessie Trekkie, Agile Monk, The Madman, and Flint Fireforge. Thank you all very, very kindly. All right, so tonight we are going to finally get the answer to the age-old question, is Dungeon Crawl Classics OSR? But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
We're happy to have you with us this evening and want you to enjoy every minute of your stay here. And while you relax and stretch, visit our concession where you'll find something to please you. There are ice-cold drinks, delicious sandwiches, ice cream, coffee and snacks, and many other pleasing treats. Our foods are fresh and tasty, our drinks satisfying and refreshing. They're so good.
Here are 6 safety hints to keep in mind whenever you drive. Fasten your seatbelts before you start. Check your brakes. Make sure your brake lights, turn signals, and headlights are working properly. Maintain 1 car interval for each 10 miles of speed. Avoid panic stops. Drive within the posted speed limits.
This must be the bad guy's hideout.
The master of deductive reasoning.
Okay, listen up. The movie starts at 7:30. We walk in late, smoking, talking, and throwing trash.
That's real offensive. The people in the theater will be disgusted.
So that's the plan. They're going to try to ruin the movie for everyone else.
What are we gonna do?
I've been saving a special Bigfoot trick for just such an occasion.
Aha! It's the old saving a special trick. Come on, make way.
Last door on the left.
Oh, this is it. Okay, we're here. You can start the move. What's this? This is your theater. You don't think they'd let you in with the grown-ups, do you?
Bigfoot, what are you doing here?
Stepping out abominable behavior in movie theaters.
Another fine mess.
Enjoy the show, guys.
Yeah. Ooh, nice day.
You'll like this new car. Yeah? It's got a built-in maker for Wilkins Instant Coffee. Who needs it? Well, you can't sell them all.
In another time, it was hidden. Its power has been growing.
I had the strangest visions.
The tremors are growing in frequency.
Now, an unknowing world
Life begins anew.
has awakened its curse.
The orb is mine.
What should I tell my people?
Tell them to flee. It will kill us all.
Beric, it is your duty to lead this quest.
Start with Lux. No one in Ishmir is more ferocious in battle. For wisdom, there is Dorian, a cleric.
Sorcery must be fought with sorcery.
There's always Ormelian.
The elf wizard.
If secrecy is the goal of this quest, no one is more stealthy than Nim. It's a trap! What chance does Ishmir have against me?
When the corruption reaches your brain, you will be reborn as one of the undead.
I will see them all burn.
Yes, we've all heard that one before.
I will rain down my revenge. Good times. You cannot win.
Wrong. Kill them all. Drain their lives.
I have heard from people that that's not a terrible movie. That the special effects are not very good because the budget is minuscule, but that the film itself was all right. And if I remember right, I think when it aired on Sci-Fi, didn't they indicate that it was Dungeons and Dragons, Wrath of the Dragon? Pretty sure. I think it was. So, Kevin R. Smith says the acting seems better in this trailer. So Kevin R. Smith said it's the even worse sequel to the god-awful D&D movie. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I stumbled across the trailer and I was like, oh, okay. Well, dungeons, right? Yes. All right, so if you tuned in late, real quick, I got the trivia question for today's giveaway. So tonight I'll be giving away a PDF copy of the Shadow Delves #1, Dawn of the Goat. So here's your question, because it is a Shadow Dark adventure. What is the name of the official Shadow Dark product that's supposed to arrive this summer from the Arcane Library? First person to give me the correct answer is going to win that PDF. Dun, dun, dun. Stray Kismet says, better done than Tom Hanks. DB says, if you can fall asleep from boredom in the trailer, that doesn't bode well for the film. W. Ford says it represented the D&D canon better. Kevin R. Smith's incorrect. I thought somebody would have just jumped right on top of this. Cthulhu is correct, but damn it. Cthulhu is winning like every week. He's like the giveaway king now. All right, so that means Cthulhu can't win anything for the rest of the week. Yes, it is the Western Reaches Danny Cable's like, the Southern Reaches? Stray Kismet says, Shadow Scar? Completely different system. Completely different game. All right. So, tonight, we are going to discuss. See, there are some questions that the greatest scholars have never been able to answer. What came first, the chicken or the egg? If a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound? And is Dungeon Crawl Classics OSR? Well, I don't know about the first two questions, but I do have the answer to the third, and we're going to discuss that tonight. And as we discuss it, what the hell? Why don't we take a peek inside the core rule book as we do so you're not just staring at my mug throughout the entire segment here. So this is the softcover Dungeon Crawl Classics core rule book. This is, I think this is the maybe 9th printing, 10th printing. Let's see. 8th printing. So, if you're not overly familiar with Dungeon Crawl Classics, it is a fantasy role-playing game. It is squarely in the old school. But is it an old school revival title? That's the big question. There are some people who claim that it is. There are other people who claim it is not. So, this does have some tenets of the old school revival. See, I say old school Renaissance because to me, old school Renaissance means it's got the feel of the old school role-playing games. I think Renaissance gives me some wiggle room, whereas most people refer to the OSR as the old school revival. And in order to do that, it must be a game that is built, that this is supposedly the definition of that OSR. The game has to be built on the skeleton of Dungeons and Dragons during the TSR era. Now that kind of gives you a pretty wide range, because isn't 3rd edition D&D? What now? Is that TSR? I remember I was gone by long before that. I was gone from D&D before 2nd edition rolled around. But essentially, it has to be built off of original Dungeons and Dragons, Basic Expert, or AD&D. So essentially, 1st and 2nd edition AD&D, because 3rd edition just becomes Dungeons and Dragons again. There you go. Little Britain points out it was 3rd edition's the first Wizards of the Coast edition. Got it. So there's some discussion of the OSR. You know, one of these nights we can dip our toes back into the discussion of the OSR, because I still think there are many people out there who are kind of scared off by it. Not necessarily only because of some of the people who are involved with the OSR, but mainly because they just don't understand what it really is, right? So, Savage Splendor says Dungeon Crawl Classics is new school with an old school feel. W. Ford says, I'm getting tired of skulls in my OSR artwork. All right. Thank you for everybody pointing out that, yes, it was Wizards of the Coast with 3rd edition. I say it all the time. From about 1982-ish, 3-ish, I think it was about 1982, through the tail end of 4th edition, I didn't really take a peek at D&D. Now I picked up like PC games, which were like Dungeons and Dragons, you know? I mean, I got like Baldur's Gate and, 1 and 2, and I also got like Neverwinter and stuff like that. But I wasn't taking a peek at the actual tabletop role-playing game. Matthew Blackwell says, OSR is just a label. There are so many games out there that they have the feel of old school play, if not mechanically, but by feel. Does it really matter if it's a cool game? It's a cool game. I think what companies want to do is make it easier for people to understand what is their game about, kind of style-wise. And if they can correctly be identified by 1 or 2 keywords, they'll go for it. They will. Now, one thing I will point out, Goodman Games has never claimed Dungeon Crawl Classics is OSR. Never have. So we've got a lot of the tenets of the old school in here. Player characters are squishy, especially early on. We have the home of the 0-level funnels, which have become a really fun way for players to receive their player characters, because they'll have a group of, villagers or what have you off on a mission, and whoever survives, those are the player characters. Another thing about Dungeon Crawl Classics is that, in my opinion, it truly buys into the 1970s, early 1980s fantasy role-playing game scene. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, I was in grammar school, then I was in high school. I mean, if you were playing a role-playing game, anything could happen. And things could be wild, could be trippy, could be completely gonzo, could be deadly serious 1 minute and then just wacky and mirthful the next. To me, that is kind of the essence of Dungeon Crawl Classics. It has a strong affiliation to the Dying Earth, and there's actually the Dying Earth for Dungeon Crawl Classics, as well as they had Lankmar, Fafhrd and Grey Mouser. That license expired. We've been talking about licenses tonight. That is another license that had expired. And Goodman Games did a really nice job with the Lankmar setting, in my opinion, from what I had seen. They did about 11 or 12 adventures, and then they had the box set. They tweaked Dungeon Crawl Classics a little bit for it. There are no clerics in Lankmar. Sadly, can't buy it anymore because the license expired. I think one thing that scares people off from Dungeon Crawl Classics is the page count. I mean, this is a massive book. But the thing is, the vast majority of the page count is devoted to spells, because we have each spell has a table for its effectiveness, as well as mishaps with spells, corruption, because this does have a very strong sword and sorcery attitude as well. So magic is a corrupting force. It's not necessarily a dark force, but it does corrupt the human body. In fact, where is it? Let's see if I can find it real quick. There's a series of images I love where it's like, maybe it's the beginning of the magic section, which shows it's like the progression of a wizard. And it goes from being like this young, hip-looking guy. Here we go. I love it. This has got to be one of my favorite line art drawings for a fantasy role-playing game. So it starts off, yeah, hey, baby. And then it's like, what the hell is that? It's like, my gosh. Yeah. Savage Splendor mentions that they grabbed their second Lankmar set. I went and I grabbed the Humble Bundle that they had that was offering the box set and then the Tomes of Adventure or Tome of Adventure. I think it's volume 3 that collected 3 or 4 of the Lankmar adventures. And then it also had, I think it was one of the physical adventures and then the rest, everything in PDF. So I've got all that. So I was like, yeah, I had never gotten it. I was like, I got to get it. Seeing I'm a huge Fritz Leiber, Bofford and Gray Mouser fan, fanatic, really. I listen to the audiobooks at least once a year. And it is my favorite sword and sorcery. But as you can see here, these are just spells. These are all spells. I'm kind of curious how well Dungeon Crawl Classics is ported over to virtual tabletop. Because the thing that, and I know there are some of you out there right now in chat who game master Dungeon Crawl Classics. I ran Sailors on the Starless Sea from Harley Stroh with the gang, and then I was we started to play the hell is it? It's a first level adventure. I'm trying to remember. It's like the Doom. It's like this devil dog thing. That was it was pretty interesting. We never finished it up. But the gang was kind of like, yeah, this is all right, I guess. I will point out it was kind of the first role-playing game that all of them got together and played. So there was a lot of my brother, if you're, not somebody who watches too often, my brother is very cautious. So his characters are always like, well, hold on, wait a second. Little Britain said they played it on Foundry. It had reasonable support, and I don't much like Foundry. Personally, I think out of the virtual tabletops, I like Foundry the best because it has the most bells and whistles to it, especially if you're trying to get people on board who are not tabletop role-playing gamers, that they tend to be more video gamers. I think it's a little easier to onboard them with all the various different mods that you can put in. Danny W. Gable says they're running Castles of Thracia for Dungeon Crawl Classics. I have my review of the 5e edition coming up. I was going to say, I think what kind of derails game masters with Dungeon Crawl Classics are these spell tables, because there are just so many of them. And early on, the player characters aren't going to have, a huge spell book. So that's not a big deal. But once you start getting into the mid levels, and the level range does go 0 to 10 with Dungeon Crawl Classics. So like a 5th level character is kind of the equivalent of like a 9th level character. If you were looking at, say, like AD&D in 20 levels, things like that. Little Britain says, yeah, their audience is old school gamers. We just need things to work predictably every time. Which is something that Magic does not do in Dungeon Crawl Classics. I do like the spell duels that you can have in Dungeon Crawl Classics, although it's not, the rules themselves aren't especially clear. At least they weren't for me as far as the spell duels. They didn't make, well, they made sense, but I don't think I completely grasped them. But let's talk about the old school revival and Dungeon Crawl Classics, because some people will fight me on this. Dungeon Crawl Classics is not OSR. It is not in the definition of OSR, because remember, we talk about this whenever OSR comes up. Nobody can even decide what the R stands for, let alone what is OSR. But it's been my understanding that old school revival is, once again, a role-playing game that is built off of the core mechanics of old Dungeons and Dragons, or original Dungeons and Dragons, basic expert, and first edition advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I've also heard second edition is also OSR, and then I've heard people say, no, second edition isn't OSR. Like I said, a lot of confusion there. But if we're going with that definition, then no, Dungeon Crawl Classics is not OSR. And right off the bat, it's not, because it uses a DC, a target number, to achieve things. So you're rolling a 20-sided die, you're looking to roll high. And, well, sometimes you're not even rolling a 20-sided die. That die might change because there is the die chain. OSR games also don't use Zaki dice. So right there, the Zaki dice takes us out of the realm of being OSR, because you do not have OSR games using the Zaki dice. You don't have 30-sided die. You don't have the 16-sided die. So something else that moves Dungeon Crawl Classics out of the OSR. I don't consider it to be new SR either. Agile Monk is saying it's new SR. So most people, and this is the funny thing, and it's not like I'm sitting here going, no, Agile Monk, you're wrong. No, not at all. Because this is something else that's not really nailed down either. But for most people, new SR, usually it's capital N, small u, capital S, capital R, tends to be games along the lines of Electric Bastion Land is considered new SR. What is it? White Hack? White Hack is considered to be new SR. The Ultraviolet Grasslands and the Black City is considered to be new SR. And new SR just uses a little bit of the framework of an old school game. So it's not built on the skeleton of it. It's built on just some of the framework. So as an example, if you have 3 attributes, but those attribute ranges are 3 to 18, then that's new SR. I know. Now, once again, this is just the definition as I've heard it more often than not, right? Just like OSR. Just like OSR. You hear, 3 people say OSR is this, and then a 4th person says it's that. That's why I'll say it again. I stick to the term old school Renaissance, and I feel that kind of opens things up a little bit more, even though revival and Renaissance are pretty interchangeable, really. But at least, like, if I were talking like old school Renaissance, I'd say, Dungeon Crawl Classic could be. It could be. But as far as old school revival, it is not. Other different, the Mighty Deeds that fighters and dwarves have is not OSR. The magic system, not OSR. Spellburn, not OSR. So you're hearing me talk about how Dungeon Crawl Classics is not OSR, but Dungeon Crawl Classics is awesome. It really is. Even though the folks at Goodman Games are like, yeah, well, they're not necessarily, fans of mine, I guess. I still think this is a fantastic game. And I happen to share news pieces from Goodman Games whenever I stumble across them. Even though I haven't received a review copy from Goodman Games in 3 years, maybe 4. There you go. Little Britain stealing a little of my thunder that I was going to kind of bring up as well. Dungeon Crawl Classics is the most Appendix N game in existence. I 100% agree. No other fantasy role-playing game, in my opinion, captures the overall feel of the Appendix N literature like Dungeon Crawl Classics. Dungeons and Dragons, AD&D doesn't capture Appendix N like Dungeon Crawl Classics does. A few other things. I know now we're kind of turning this into an ad for Dungeon Crawl Classics, but it is that good. It really is. And they're always, if you're curious about getting the copy of the core rulebook, they have, I'm trying to remember what is it, the beginner's set? That's what I got. That's how I got this and a set of Zaki dice. They call them just DCC dice, but they are Zaki dice. As well as Sailors on the Starless Sea. I always want to say Sailors on the Seas of Fate. I got all of those together, and I think it was $30 plus shipping. If you go to a convention and Goodman Games is there, more often than not, they will have this core rulebook, the softcover core rulebook, for $10. It is their convention special. That's how Elliot picked up Dungeon Crawl Classics. He's like, oh, dude, it's only $10? I'm like, yeah. He goes, yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I'm going to buy it. I was like, go ahead. I was like, get it. You can also see that the line artwork is very, very reminiscent of the early years of Dungeons and Dragons. And of course, there's quite a bit of artwork throughout from artists who did work on AD&D. Very cool. So just giving you a peek inside. We got our Appendix T, the various different titles. Rules complexity. Then we get a couple of, I think it's 2, it might be 3 introductory adventures here to get you started. It is 2. So very cool. So my definitive answer to the question, is Dungeon Crawl Classics old school revival? The answer is no, it is not. But even if you are somebody who is really curious about the old school revival, old school renaissance, if you want to get involved in it, you want to see how role-playing games were back in the day, especially fantasy role-playing games, you owe it to yourself to at least check this out, even if it's in PDF, because it is that good. It's really fun. It's really built to be fun and gonzo and off the wall, and go from 1 minute, half of your 0 level characters have been wiped out by something, and then the next minute you're all laughing around the table maniacally over something else that's just taken place. So no, Dungeon Crawl Classics is not OSR, but Dungeon Crawl Classics is a fantastic fantasy role-playing game, which I recommend for just about anybody to have in their collection. Even if you're not going to utilize Dungeon Crawl Classics as written, there's a ton in here that can be utilized with, or at least inspire you as a game master. We talk about that all the time. Cribbing stuff, stealing things from other role-playing games to use in your game. This certainly has a bunch to it as well. All right, let's see. Had a few more people popping into chat. And I see Agile Monk with a $10 super chat. So Elder Goblin Games said it's QPR, quantum polyhedral resonance. Kevin R. Smith says, I agree with Jeff. DCC is not OSR, but it's in the OSR folder in their Dropbox. I guess I'm a hypocrite. No, not at all. I don't think so. It's just, like I said, if you want to sit there and if we stick to the definition that a majority of people say is OSR, then no, it's not. And your first clue are these Zaki dice. But also pointed out by Little Britain, it is the most Appendix N role-playing game in existence. It really is. There is Mutant Crawl Classics if you're aiming for kind of a more of a Gamma World, gonzo, post-apocalyptic vibe. I gotta say, I did not like that core book as much. It's about half the size. So for one, it feels like it's missing a lot. But, I mean, it's fine. It's not terrible. But I don't know if that would be my go-to if I wanted to run a like Gamma World-ish. I might look at something like Mutant Future or what is it called? I think it's Mutant Epoch. I think that's another one. Whichever one would be kind of the maybe rules lighter of the bunch. And then, of course, we've got the Neon Overlords of the Toxic Wastes. That's also a pretty cool one that I have reviewed. Little Britain says, back in 2003, they were going to use the open game license, create a game that captured the feel of early D&D. And then DCC came out, and I just bought that instead. Yeah. Pete Strakulich says, I'm going to Bloom of the Blood Garden next. I have no idea what that is. Agile Monk says, we all have our version of Appendix N, which is so cool as it allows us to all have aligned in unique areas we love in our gaming. Danny Gable says, hey, that PDF's going to weigh a lot less. I am curious how Dungeon Crawl Classics would be on, like, Foundry. And it would be because, I should say, the spell burn and spell duels and all the tables for spells, if that's all being handled by the software itself, I mean, that'd be like sweet. Although I will say, I think you would suffer a little bit as far as a presentation because you're looking at everything's line art, don't really have battle maps. Although the maps for Dungeon Crawl Classics are usually pretty cool. Oh, there you go. Little Britain says the maps work a little strangely on virtual tabletop because they aren't top down. Yeah, they tend to be kind of like a 3D angle. Matthew Blackwell says, I've seen the system on Foundry for Dungeon Crawl Classics. Just curious how it is. Yes. All right. So, I don't know. We're on the topic of OSR. So, tomorrow night, should we talk about some, I don't want to say unpopular or unknown. maybe we'll do some OSR role-playing games which deserve your attention or deserving of more love. Because I do have a few. Maybe we'll take a look at 5 that maybe I think more people should be aware of. Well, I mean, not to say that people aren't aware of them. I'm just saying. Matthew Blackwell says, I don't know anything about it. I only have Basic Fantasy and Castles and Crusades installed on Foundry. Oh, okay. I've seen that. Yeah, I know they've got it for Foundry too. They've got adventures and stuff like that for Foundry. But Danny Gable says they've been cracking on Call of Cthulhu last couple of weeks. So Matthew Blackwell says Basic Fantasy needs to be #1, Jeff. Just saying. Yeah, you just say it all you want. Boomerman, Dan Webb, and Coco B are with us. Coco B's coming in saying, what's the verdict on DCC as OSR? Hey, because Coco B is late, nobody tell. Don't tell Coco B. Don't let them know. Make them have to rewatch this. Boomerman Dan Webb says Dragon Slayer is supposed to be between BX and 1E. So Cooperative Waffle says Castle Greyhawk. Well, Castle Greyhawk's not. Castle Greyhawk's a setting. It's not a game. It's Castles and Crusades that the new one's designed for. Danny says, you gave me a PDF of Call of Cthulhu. I've been obsessed. Well, don't let it take over your life, man. Chris Lendren's pushing that Planet of the Apes ripoff game. Yeah. The check must have cleared. Chris is back talking about Apes Victorious. JD So says, I get it confused with the Free League Dragon Verb version. You mean Dragon Bane? I don't even know how I would pronounce that. Ike? We'll just say Ike. Said, I saw Joe Goodman pointing at a whiteboard in one of their videos. It said, DCC not equal OSR. Yeah, like I said, no one at Goodman Games has ever claimed, to my knowledge, that Dungeon Crawl Classics is OSR. So, all righty. That is it for this time out. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do tomorrow night. Tomorrow night's topic, we will discuss 5 OSR fantasy role-playing games that probably deserve a little more attention. And I know there'll be people out there saying, oh, hold on, wait a second, man, that game, everybody knows about that game. Maybe we know of it. So, Little Britain says, I think Goodman's positioning as not OSR is good marketing. They can avoid controversy while pushing a good game. Yeah, well, sadly enough, Goodman actually puts their foot into some things as well. So they've created controversy themselves, and they didn't need the OSR to do that. JD Soul says, Dragon Bane, Dragon Slayer, Dragon, roll a new character. Nice. All right. Boomerang Dan Webb says, I'm interested to see if that list of OSR, or maybe Dan's just saying, I'm interested to see that list of OSR games. Yeah, that's what we'll do tomorrow night. We'll do that. I'll try to track down. I know I've got quite a few. I'm sure I can come up with 5 that I'm like, yeah, I think more people should be aware of this. All right. Yeah. Dan Webb says, yeah, brain fart. And I guess that was what they were trying to say. So that's it for this time out. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, You get a tip of the cap. Because not only are you keeping me company, but you're keeping each other company while I'm doing the news or pontificating about a topic, what have you. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. I really do appreciate you taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the channel. Now, of course, when you're not watching videos here on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are never going to see here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. And if you ring the bell, be sure to select all notifications, because that way you'll be informed not only of when the Dispatch streams live, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central. You'll also find out when I share other videos, such as my recent review, actually popped up today, of Blade Runner, the role-playing game, Replicant Rebellion from Free League Publishing. That's right. It's hitting stores May 26th, if I remember correctly. I've got my review up for it. Yeah, you can't really make it out. There's a little bit of glare on that book at the moment. I'll try to move it so it's not catching so much of the light. But yes, I reviewed that, and I also reviewed Warhammer 40K Wrath and Glory, the Dark Side Extraction. That was my other review this weekend, and both positive reviews. If you're kind of curious, check them out. All right, everybody, thank you very kindly for watching. Enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and as always, I certainly hope each and every one of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.